hitch a helicopter ride 70 kilometres southeast of Kabul and you enter a forbidding terrain once dubbed the Gates of Jihad. Logar province on the border with Pakistan. This is Taliban territory. We land at a forward operating base, delivered into the very personal, confronting war of America's Generation Y. Most of those now fighting and dying here were still in school when George Bush declared war on terror nearly 9 long years ago. The Obama administration has ordered a huge troop surge to finally defeat the Taliban. But more boots on the ground means more casualties.
I don't take my life for granted because death surrounds me.
It's trauma in a tent as they fight to save lives in this deadly combat zone.
Right on, bro. It's a personal conflict, it's emotional conflict, it's, trying to keep people alive.
We joined the US Army Medevac crews, doctors and nurses engaged in what can be a dangerous and harrowing task. Welcome to MASH 2010. This is the canvas and plywood world of the 8th Forward Surgical Team. Leading the small group of doctors, nurses and medics are surgeons Major Hueman and Brian Helsel.
This isn't my first rodeo. I've done this before. I've worked at major trauma centers. I trained in Los Angeles County Hospital, which is a major place of trauma. And it's not that it doesn't affect you, it's just you learn to cope and you learn to distance yourself, and you have to be passionate to make these people get better, but you also have to have a bad memory.
For Major Hueman, the army is his life.
I was trying to say it nonchalantly.
He joined at 17 and has spent 16 years training as an officer and surgeon to be here.
You get a big bowl so we can throw this stuff in there.
And business is brisk.
We've been the busiest forward surgical team, not just in Afghanistan, but in Iraq and Afghanistan.
In just 10 months, their small tented hospital has received a staggering 600 trauma cases.
It's designed to do damage control surgery, which means save someone's life so that they can get further in the evacuation system to get definitive surgery.
It's about to get much busier. The surge will soon push US and coalition troop numbers beyond 150,000. Their orders to take the fight to the Taliban. But first, they've got to secure the deadly roads, riddled with improvised explosive devices, or IEDs. We're barely a stone's throw away from the operating theatre over here. More patrols and convoys are preparing to head out in their huge MRAPs, mine-resistant patrol vehicles. It's now mid-winter in Afghanistan, and this is usually a time when there's a traditional lull in the fighting, brought about by the bitterly cold weather. This time last year there was a metre of snow here, but not this year. It's unseasonably warm, and that means the Taliban are still out there laying IEDs, setting ambushes. And for these guys, that means more casualties.
That's not 4-3, that's not 4-5. 4-3, 4-5. You guys showing 19 kilometers in the morning. Turn until departure, urgent medevac. Roger, 4-3.
When you get that call, you hear medevac, you're not thinking about the dangers so much as you are thinking about that patient. You don't know who it is. It could be a US, Afghan, a child.
As the Black Hawk Medevac choppers scramble, the news is all bad.
Need a body bag on the ground.
A massive explosion has just destroyed an MRAP.
Man and vehicle fucked up.
2 soldiers are dead, 3 wounded.
Are they American? Yeah, so I don't want one guy staring at his dead body the whole time. Yeah. You got a body bag underneath your seat, sir?
As they land, the crew expects an attack. On the ground, the helicopters are highly vulnerable, and the Taliban know it.
Really nervous. The one with the dude walking back and forth in that house right there with an RPG. Yeah, I see him. I don't see an RPG, but yeah, I saw him over there.
High overhead, a pilotless surveillance drone captures in real time these images of the Medevac, vigilant for any sign of ambush.
Really wish they'd hurry up.
The Americans have spent $32 billion replacing their vulnerable Humvee vehicles with thousands of MRAPs. The Taliban simply build bigger bombs. IEDs now account for 60% of all coalition casualties. The living and the dead are loaded onto separate helicopters for the flight home.
How tough is it to deal with what's going on in the back of the aircraft that you're flying? I mean, you're picking up some terribly damaged people.
Honestly, I don't look back very often. I'm pretty tender-hearted. Not that I can't. I mean, if I need to, I do, but I focus on flying.
Good power, good power. Keep going.
For the wounded, it's now a race against the clock to beat the so-called golden hour.
The golden hour is when the person has an injury, within the first 2 to 5 minutes, there's a certain number of people who will die that are not safe. The next hour is where a lot of people, if they don't get to a place that has surgical capability and a full gamut of taking care of them, will die as well. So the golden hour really reflects those people that are savable if you're able to get them to a place like a forward surgical team within that hour.
Just 7 minutes later, the wounded are delivered into the hands of the surgical team. At a discreet distance, the body bags are also unloaded. 520 US and coalition troops were killed in the past year, the deadliest in the conflict so far. But all attention is now focused on saving the living, doing all they can in the golden hour.
We provide 21st century intensive care, critical care for patients that would otherwise die. I mean, there's no way around some of these people would have died.
Too many soldiers wounded on Afghanistan's remote battlefields were bleeding to death before reaching surgery at the big military hospitals. So last year, Army surgical teams were moved much closer to the fight to beat the golden hour.
You watch the TV show MASH and you think about them trying to make do with what they have, and I think that's really what we're doing here.
For those who make it here alive, often with horrific injuries, there's now a 98% chance of survival.
Keep your eyes open, keep your head straight.
A young female soldier, pulled from the wreckage of the MRAP, has multiple fractures. For her comrade, Sergeant Adam Sandifer, hit by the massive concussive blast, the injuries are less clear.
Yes, if it hurts, no, if it doesn't, okay?
We try to get the chest and the pelvis within the first 10 minutes with all the other things that we do, like checking the airway, making sure that they're breathing, making sure they have a pulse, getting an IV in. We do the ultrasound, making sure that they don't have blood in their abdomen.
It sounds like we applied traction across the elbow with the elbow flexed at 90.
Matt Hueman and Brian Helsel both served in Iraq.
I'm sure she came down and hit something kind of...
They're well practiced in treating IED
Like
victims.
this, kind of protecting yourself, and this fractures. And
But this is a different war, with different injuries.
that's a Montague fracture.
So even though they're travelling in the new armoured MRAPs, they still can suffer severe injuries.
They can, and it's deceptive because it tends to be internal injuries. So, you know, in my last deployment, we would see amputations, significant, like above the knee amputations with the Humvees. In this deployment, their leg appears to be functionally intact, but it's still a significant injury inside, and so it's actually sometimes a little bit harder to figure out.
When you guys landed, you went up in the air like this and you come straight back down?
Yes.
And then did it stay on its wheels the whole time, or did it roll over?
No, I just felt like the inside of the compartment coming apart.
Okay. I'm just trying to figure out so I know what to look for in people's injuries. Everybody in here looks like they're doing okay, all right? So you just hang tight.
I got the arm.
Without the MRAPs, the toll would be much higher.
So she has an ulnar fracture?
Most of the soldiers that come in now after extremely violent, huge IEDs that leaves huge craters that would normally have killed them or maimed them, I would say most of them walk away now.
Adam Sandifer is released to contemplate the random nature of war. Why he lived, and 2 friends in the same vehicle died. The dead are laid out in the foyer. Those gathered are stilled by anger and shock. The grieving and a dignified flag-draped send-off will follow. Out on the flight line, the Medevac crews are back on standby. Acting commander is 27-year-old Captain Nissa Brodman, a graduate of the elite West Point Military Academy.
I do prefer the humanitarian aspect. For me, it's what I really feel drawn to. I did go to West Point. I actually wanted to be a doctor. My class rank wasn't high enough to become a doctor, which actually ends up being a blessing, because then I branched aviation and in flight school rebranched to medical service to fly medevac, because that's what I really wanted to fly. And here we are. I'm pretty spiritual, and every Saturday night I go to Mass. It's my way of dealing with that. So you definitely contemplate it. It's in your face all the time.
So line up here. I'm gonna start lining up.
I would say I'm the mom.
She lined me up.
I get teased a little bit about being the mom.
I'm lined up, Carl.
But I think that's a good thing. I mean, I do my best to care for the people I work for, you know? We all get letters once a week or so. We usually pick out every now and then a good one and hang it up.
What does it say?
Thank you for fighting for our country, even though it may mean death. He's in 5th grade.
I got real lucky getting put here.
Devin Bundy was barely out of the 5th grade himself when it all started back on 9/11. Now he's part of the Gen Y army that's inherited the war on terror.
He's our youngest soldier in the platoon. He's a commo guy, so he makes sure that we receive every mission.
How old are you?
19.
Yeah. And how long have you been in the army for?
A little under 2 years now.
And you're here already?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. What do your parents make of that?
They weren't thrilled, but they got over it now. So.
There's little time for reflection. The Medevac crews are soon back in action. A US patrol has found 16-year-old Mohammed lying in a ditch, critically injured with a gunshot wound to the hip.
Like, he's bleeding a little bit more,
okay.
But as far as pain-wise, he doesn't seem to be too bad.
All right, sound good.
The medics are wary, and with good reason. In Kabul recently, the Taliban rigged an ambulance as a car bomb. Another suicide attacker posed as a doctor.
Why is he brought to this tent?
He's brought here just because he's not a U.S. citizen, so we strip them all down, make sure there's no unexploded ordnance. The people are important, but also the equipment, because we can't replace the equipment, so we try and make sure that they're all good to go before we take them inside.
That's a potential threat, is it?
It is. You just never know.
News that Mohammed was shot by Afghan police worries the surgical team commander, Captain Ben Wilhelm.
Wait a minute, so he's from Ghazni, but he also said he's from Logar.
Now he said that I'm from Ghazni. I think he was shocked. He said that I'm from Logar. His village name is Kalakher. Kalakher.
And my alarm bells started to start going off.
What concerns you about this case?
Well, when they're iffy on the information, could mean any number of things. It could be completely innocent, could be just the pain talking, but on the other hand, it could be he was doing something he shouldn't have been doing. That's how he got shot. So
potentially Taliban.
Potentially. I mean, there's plenty of illegal activities that go on in Afghanistan that have nothing to do with the Taliban too. I mean, he could have been running drugs or whatever else. He's clear. He doesn't pose any immediate danger to us. I mean, we're going to take care of him just like we would a U.S. soldier, but it sets off alarm bells when they don't seem to either know where they're coming from or don't seem to have a consistent story. We've had a number of enemy prisoners of war come through, confirmed Taliban. We've had some that were shot by our guys. We've had a few that have blown themselves up planting IEDs. This is what happens when you've got third grade education. You're dealing with highly technical explosives. It is difficult, but you have to, again, find a positive way to deal with that. You have to set any kind of emotional animosity you have aside and see them not as the enemy, but as a patient. And that person needs your help right now.
So we had multiple small bowel injuries, and we tried to figure out where we could combine those together. With the GIA? What we've learned really in the last decade as a community is that just removing the contamination and not actually trying to fix it definitively at the first operation actually allows patients to do even better.
It turns out Mohammed is no insurgent, just a boy caught in the crossfire. His only lucky break that he was brought here.
And a little bit of a right.
In much of Afghanistan, advanced medical care is non-existent, with hospital infection rates so high that to be admitted can be a death sentence.
For our local nationals, we have less capability of moving them to another facility for definitive care, and we recognize that we probably provide the best definitive care here.
Coffee's over here by the blood.
Thank you.
This is a war fought 24 hours a day. Poor night visibility has grounded the combat helicopters, but Medevac flies regardless, and we tag along. Saving lives sometimes means flying blind. We return to where the MRAP was destroyed earlier in the day. The Taliban have since fired rockets at a crew sent to recover the wrecked vehicle. A combat engineer has been accidentally sprayed in the face with battery acid. In the dark, it's impossible to assess his injuries. He's delivered to the surgical team.
Gently relax your eyes for a second.
Where at the end of what's been a very long, hellish day, there's finally some good news. He'll make a full recovery.
Feels like I'm drowning. This does not go on Facebook.
I say again, there will be a controlled detonation in approximately 10 minutes outside the farm.
Well, out here just beyond the helipad and the hospital lies the future. A year ago, this was an outpost of fewer than 300 troops. Already there are 2,000 in this camp. And in not long from now, there'll be anything up to 20,000, all part of the surge. Already the Americans are building a runway that'll soon be able to land long-distance jets, and there are very permanent structures now being constructed all around the compound. You really do get the impression that the Americans will be in Afghanistan for a long time to come.
And one of the toughest battles ahead lies in winning the hearts and minds. Last year was the deadliest for civilians, with more than 2,400 killed. US medical support for Afghans is intended as a morale booster. 40% of the casualties treated by the surgical team are Afghan troops or local civilians. But this American goodwill takes a battering every time a boy such as 14-year-old Arif becomes a statistic. And be warned, this is confronting.
He said that American patrol and Afghan national patrol, they are coming in their village. And the children playing with a stone together, and they threw out a stone on on them. Suddenly, National Army attacked on him, and they shot.
So the patrol shot him for throwing stones?
Yeah, not American people, Afghan people.
With the Americans?
Yeah.
It's all drained and I think with these things out.
Arif was shot 6 months ago. Every week since then, his brother has brought him in for treatment.
His initial entry of his wound was through his arm here. He has a broken arm here, and that's really the only thing that hurts him right now. So if you touch his arm at all, that's what bothers him. And then the wound went into his chest and then in his spine. So he's paralyzed from about here down. I'm afraid that it's probably a terminal thing. We try and make it as comfortable for him as we can. I mean, these wounds are pretty devastating wounds.
For the doctors, sanctuary lies behind a plywood door. This is their escape from the relentless stress of surgery. Afghanistan is left behind outside the tent.
This is home. Sort of Mardi Gras on drugs.
I think it's holidays gone bad in here. Sometimes you just need to decompress. Like the other night, we were in there operating for 12 hours and we came back and watched a couple episodes of a TV show just to kind of unwind so you can go to sleep.
I have this fire hat that was from his second birthday, and I have some other knickknacks that my wife sent, and some of the pictures that she sent me underneath. So that's what keeps me going.
Their tent is packed with reminders of life at home. And not surprisingly, it's here, away from the hard focus of saving lives, that raw emotion can surface.
You know that there's U.S. trauma coming in, and when the Medevac helicopter lands, and you see the soldiers sort of congregate and sort of be worried about them, because you know they're worried about them as their brother, or is it one of their friends. I think that makes it really difficult. It also makes it really rewarding because I feel confident that we've taken care of people as best we can and have gotten them to a point where if they were able to be saved, we were able to save them.
Ahead lies a hot, even deadlier summer. As the surge begins, one former American commander estimates US casualties will be as high as 500 a month.
I'm dreading it, just the hope that we can keep up. Hope that we have enough crews for every wounded soldier out there. So our biggest worry is that we don't have enough guys or enough crew members or enough aircraft to perform our mission.
Another day, another medevac. We join Nissa Brodman on a mission to evacuate an American soldier with spinal injuries. Combat stress and the pressure of constant deployments to Iraq and Afghanistan are taking their toll. Most of these young soldiers joined up after 9/11, expecting to fight. They believe this is a just war. But you do sense a deep war weariness now permeating through the ranks of America's Gen Y army.
I hope that there's an end in sight, because why else are we doing this? I mean, if it's just going to go on and on.
What's with the bot? We used to just sit around and enjoy it and kind of talk and helps decompress a little bit. Yes! That's what she said.
Major Hueman is a career officer, passionate about surgery and the army.
All new body by Victoria, 25% off.
But he now openly questions the direction of the war.
This is what we're fighting for over here.
I'm enormously proud to be here. Having said that, I think that in terms of the objectives of the war, I always felt that I supported whatever the president would say, and I would go here. And I know that I have a clear mission as a physician, as a surgeon, to put soldiers back together again. I'm not sure that it's always been communicated in a way that all of us can understand what we're doing here in both Afghanistan and Iraq.
Get the Spurs! Get the Spurs out, honey!
I think it's clear that the overall picture makes sense of, okay, we were attacked and this is the place where the attack emanated from. But in terms of what we're doing here now, it's not clear to me that we have an overall endpoint that makes sense to me. And if it doesn't make sense to me, then does it make sense to the average soldier that's going out there and risking their life?
But while ever soldiers continue to risk their lives, the medics will be here to save them. The radio alert, a reminder that the war drags on relentlessly.
It's a medevac request, so we just started having fun.
So I guess we'll be back to work here pretty soon. Just have to figure out how to put this thing out. Does anybody have a fire extinguisher?